Hello, hello, hello. How are you doing? It's really good to have you with us. I do apologize that we're a couple of minutes late, but this is the beauty of recording this absolutely live, off the hook, unplugged, which means that anything can happen, and it does generally at 6 o'clock on a Friday. But do you know what? It's teaching us to think on our feet, isn't it? So if you're new here, if you're here for the very first time, you're so welcome here. My name is Ashley, and this is our spiritual circle where every Friday we bring together some really interesting, fascinating people doing some amazing work in various spiritual fields. And this is our opportunity, whilst we aren't physically able to get together in a circle, to come and be in a virtual spiritual community of open-hearted people seeking and looking for information and knowledge. So good evening to everybody. If you're here for the first time, hello and welcome. So pleased you found us in this corner of Facebook. If you come every week, it is an absolute delight and pleasure to have you with us. So welcome all. So this evening, it is my absolute pleasure to welcome the lovely Marina Beech, soul alchemist, Akashic extraordinaire. How are you doing, Marina?
Oh, thank you very much. That was a wonderful introduction. And so I apologize first of all because I was looking away, but I was just sharing. I was sharing to my page. So I'm absolutely brilliant. Thank you very much for asking, and it's an absolute pleasure to be here. So thank you for inviting me to chat to you and your community, and hopefully give them lots of insight around what I do and the amazing Akashic Records and all things spiritual.
Amazing. I, for one, I'm really excited about this because I've been hearing about the Akashics for such a long time, kind of in and out of my esoteric journey and the various different places I've come across them. So I know we're going to talk about that in a lot more detail later on, just to try and look for the clues of where they've appeared through various sacred texts, various spiritual modalities, and how we can kind of embrace them for ourselves. So people, do put your questions in. These sessions are really interactive, and they're your opportunity to put your questions to these amazing guests. If you've always wanted to know and you've never been able to ask, then this is your chance to do that. Do make sure, I can see some of you are checking in and saying hi to each other, as you would if we were coming into circle. So please do say hi to your friends that are on. And as Marina said, if you feel so moved to share this live, there's no obligation to do that. But do you know what? It's sharing the love and sharing the energy. If you know of someone who would benefit from this broadcast or anything we talk about, then feel absolutely free to share it with your nearest and dearest. Super. I'm just going to say hello to a couple of the lovely people that have popped in. So who have we got? We have got the lovely Jan. Hello, Jan. How are you doing? Oh, marvelous, Paula. It's always a joy to see your little face. To lovely Phil, to Linda Marie. How you doing, Linda Marie? Susan, Liz, Valerie from County Durham. Jennifer, how you doing? People from all over. I love this. I love it. I love it. Lovely Neil, how are you doing, Neil? Can't wait to have you on to talk to me, Neil. That is coming up next week. Teresa, to Donna, to Phil and the Wimbledon crew, to Mary. Oh my goodness, so many of you on. Hello to Stuart as well, just popping in there. It's amazing, so many of you on. So this is your opportunity, guys. Go and grab yourself a cuppa, refresh your glass, go and make yourself comfortable, settle in, have your pen and paper ready because you're going to want to take some notes, absolutely, and write some things down. And we will be back in about 30 seconds. We'll see you in just a minute. We are back. It's so good to have you with us. So let's start at the beginning, shall we, Marina, because it's a fascinating story, and the universe was at play when I came across your work and some of the amazing things that you're doing and some of your meditations that you're putting on Facebook. So to start off at 10, can you talk to us about what the Akashic Records are and how you first came across them? And kind of what happened, what the story was.
Yeah, absolutely. I sure can. So the Akashic Records, first of all, are kind of a knowledge base. They're an access point where you can find out a lot more information about yourself, but also other people. So they are perceived as a library. That seems to be the most common way of actually visualizing them. And they sit on the 5th dimension, or the spiritual realms. And they are not newfangled. They're not kind of a new age thing. They have been around for, since the beginning of time, but they've been kind of in people's consciousness for thousands and thousands of years. So they're mentioned in the Bible. They're known globally around the world, and they're also known as the soul records. They're also known as the Akasha, and the word Akasha is based on the Sanskrit language, and it represents ether. So that's kind of what the word Akasha means. And so it's something that we are, because we're much more conscious now, we're on our spiritual journeys, we're waking up. It's a point of knowledge. It's a spiritual realm that we can access because we have more consciousness and we have more of an ability to do that. But before then, even maybe up until about 30 years ago, it was only really kind of viewed that the spiritual or the highly conscious could actually access the Akashic Records. And that probably was true, because our concerns were more about safety and security and feeding ourselves and keeping ourselves warm. So, and that's kind of what our main focus was. But now that's not the case. One of the most famous people that was able to read the Akashic Records was a guy called Edgar Cayce. And he was really kind of big from the late 1800s through to the 1930s. And he was known as the sleeping prophet. So he would actually go into some kind of trance and was able to connect with people's Akashic Records, from all over the world. And he used to receive letters from people who wanted his guidance and advice, and he would then give them that information by responding back on a letter. But he would get, recorded. People would go and watch him while he was going into the Akashic Records. So he made it quite well known in terms of this spiritual realm that could be accessed. But it's kind of also said that, like Nostradamus used the Akashic Records to prophesize some of his stuff. And there is lots of famous cases of people coming up with, amazing inventions. But there's more than one person at the same time. There's, and it's been recorded when, like Edison came up with the light bulb. Well, it was actually recorded that other people came up with that same concept, and it's one of the kind of I guess the ideas around that is that they were all accessing the Akashic Records at the same time to get that idea, but they downloaded it, and it was whoever got it out first, kind of, it then got contributed to that person as being the inventor of it. So there's quite a few cases of things around that. So the Akashic Records are basically just a knowledge point that we can access, and we would access those really to learn about ourselves, and every choice, consequence, thought, feeling, action that we've ever had since our soul's creation, which could be thousands of lifetimes, is recorded in the Akashic Records. So as an energy, because it is an energy, they are massive and they're constantly being recorded and updated, because every single choice that I'm making, like me talking to you, is being recorded in the Akashic Records. And so the probabilities or the possibilities of what I'm going to do next is all held within the Akashic Records. And then as soon as I make a choice, then that's the thing that gets recorded. So they're amazing kind of realm that you can access, and that's what I support my clients with. But I also support them with identifying things that hold them back as well. So it's we'll talk about the benefits in a minute, but that just gives you a bit of an idea of what they are.
It sounds utterly amazing. And for some of the people who are spiritualists, who have already looked into Cayce's work and kind of have heard the term Akashic Records, I find that really interesting. And I find it interesting what you say about the theory that inventors are accessing that point of intelligence, which is amazing, because there's an awful lot of stuff going on at the moment, actually, that in the place we're in as a human race, that actually there are people out there, the seers and spiritual teachers and kind of prophets, if you will, they would have been called prophets, that are all talking about really common language and the same kind of things. And it's all kind of being downloaded at the same time. So you've just answered the question for me. That's really interesting. Thank you. It's all coming. I love it. So it's a retrospective then of things. I'm thinking of a film kind of sliding doors kind of moment. So it's a retrospective of all of those different decision making. Is there a future element as well? A kind of our future life?
There is the future, but you can't predict the future in the Akashic Records because there's just too many possibilities. So when I work with my clients with the Akashic Records, what I do is I actually place intentions into the Akashic Records to increase the probability of a certain outcome. And I think that is really the only thing that you can kind of really do. You can't predict the future because there's just too much option in terms of what you choose to do in order to get to that outcome. Of course, you can influence it with your choices and what you physically do, but I do believe that you can also place these what I call success anchors into your Akashic Records as well to support, you know, your choices in terms of what you do to get to that intention or that goal as well. But you can't foretell the future. No, it's not the same as mediumship, I don't believe.
Okay, amazing. Okay. Success anchors. I've already got that written down as one of the things I want to talk to you about, the anchors and some of the visual aids and cues that you use in your work. We're going to, oh my goodness, there are so many questions I have, which are amazing. Okay. So how is your Akashic record different from your kind of soul contract, which is another term which feels like it kind of belongs in this space? Is that a different thing, or is that kind of the same word for a similar energy?
Well, from what I understand, your soul contract is something that kind of gets decided before you come into your human incarnation. And so then you are agreeing to maybe continue soul lessons or life lessons or karmic lessons, maybe with certain people that you've already kind of had past lifetimes with, or maybe not. So from what I understand, your soul contract is more to do with whatever guides that you've got with you and your higher self, and you then kind of come into your incarnation. I mean, it could be linked with your Akashic Records. It's not something that I've ever actually explored in the Akashic Records, other than you have contracts that can hold you back. You have contracts that actually support your life lessons, and you don't really touch those. But the ones that, you know, you've kind of nearly done with, and the energy of them is not supporting you, that's the kind of stuff that I locate and clear, or get my clients to clear. So it's an interesting one, because for me, I see them as two different things. So I don't know whether the Akashic Records influences your soul contract or not. For me, it's just like a record of what goes on. So I think your soul contract is probably something different. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. And that was the whole purpose. And that's what I love about these Friday nights, is actually getting the opportunity to bring people into a space where actually we can ask questions, where there's an awful lot of language within spiritual communities, which actually does a little bit more to isolate people and become a bit of a barrier to understanding than actually increases awareness and understanding. So thank you so much for breaking all of this down for us so that we can grasp it, because it's a fascinating subject. I'm just going to go to an amazing question. Helios has come through. He's asked a load of really good questions. So the first question that he asked, we're going to come back to the Akashic record benefits in a reading, because we're definitely going to talk about that. But he's asking about kind of developing our mediumship and our kind of psychic awareness gifts. Can having an understanding of your Akashics help with that?
Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, one of the benefits of using the Akashic Records is it heightens your intuition. So what I do when with some of the stuff that I offer as a group option in terms of Akashic Records, is to have a clearing, your subconscious being cleared, because we can hold on to a lot of trauma, memories, limiting beliefs around, first of all, using our intuition, using our, clairvoyant skills or mediumship skills, psychic skills. And so I support my clients, first of all, with clearing some of that trauma and the stuff that we're holding on to energetically in our body, which then really does help open up the intuition and the third eye. But then if you're starting to use the practice of actually going in to access your Akashic Records, which sits on the spiritual realms, then you are going to use your intuition. Absolutely. And I found that when I'm doing my one-to-one research, because I use a pendulum, I'm a bit like a psychic detective in the Akashic Records, and I used a lot of yes and no answers. So what I find now is, because I've been using that method for so long, that the answer comes before the pendulum finishes spinning or rocking or whatever it's going to do. And so the answer drops in, and that has only been strengthened through my practice. And your intuition is a muscle. It has to be practiced with. It's like going to the gym. If you don't use it for a little while, then it gets rusty. So that's, that's just part possible. Using your Akashic Records absolutely supports that. And what you can also do is you can kind of go into your Akashic Records to look at maybe where you've suffered persecution, for using your healing gifts or being a midwife and being called a witch or whatever. Because we were very intuitive back thousands of years ago. That's kind of what we used in order to survive. But that, once you started to get kind of hunted down and imprisoned for those types of skills, then we start to shut it off. So going into your Akashic Records to heal some of those lifetimes and some of that persecution and that trauma that you will be holding on to will also support the expansion and the strengthening of your intuition. So it kind of hits it both ways.
Wow, that was definitely the answer that he just wanted. Yeah, amazing. We are going to put Marina's details on. Do not go anywhere. We're putting Marina's details on so you can get in touch with her and ask all of your questions and arrange some time to kind of chat with her offline. Mm-hmm. I knew this was going to be an amazing evening. So it's so many questions on that, and I'm so fascinated by what you just said, which is something that's really hit me hard. And I don't know whether it's because I've been more in a spiritual space this year, consciously in a spiritual space, but definitely coming up to Samhain, and you did a beautiful ancestral Akashic meditation on your Facebook group, which was really powerful. Because you're right, there's many centuries of conditioning and kind of layers of things which we've accepted as a spiritual community. I mean, there's, it was only within a generation that, the Fraudulent Mediums Act and all of this, all of this stuff which is kind of layered upon people, especially who are spiritual, in going out and offering gifts and having some terrible things said about them in the community, that we're so fortunate in the generation we're in that we can freely practice our offerings. So you work with that to free us up, from those layers. Amazing. Oh, amazing. Debbie's asked a really interesting question. What does the term Akashic actually mean? I mean, you mentioned it was Sanskrit, but how did your journey start with this? And we kind of skipped that, but how did you first?
Oh yeah, okay. So Debbie, the word Akasha means ether. So it's originated from the Sanskrit language. So my journey to the Akashic Records was completely a fluke, and it was 4 years ago, and I came across a lady that was doing a live on Facebook, as you do, and she'd actually she'd advertised that she was doing this live, and she wanted to know, she put a question out there on whether you wanted to know this or know that. And I thought, well, I don't know what the Akashic Records are, but I'll kind of go with what my master program is, thinking that perhaps it was something like a gift that would help me with whatever I was doing in at the moment. And it wasn't. What it is a master program is like a subconscious program, a piece of hardware that's running in the background that's really not supporting you in terms of moving forward. And so I was listening to the live and heard her say, in your master program is alcoholism. And I kind of nearly fell off the chair because, I'd got a psychological addiction to alcohol. And it was kind of like, oh my God, that just makes so much sense. Even though I wasn't physically drinking a lot, the the energy of, you know, kind of the daily thing that I was going through in order to not have a drink or to really restrict what I was drinking, it was, you know, it was exhausting. And she got her pendulum out. She said, I found this in the Akashic Records, you know, and obviously she couldn't see me because this was just alive. And she span her pendulum and she switched the switch off by clearing that program from my Akashic Records. And the switch went off and I didn't think about alcohol after that. And I've not had a drink for like 4 years. I've been completely, you know, don't want a drink. It's absolutely fine. Mm-hmm. And it was just like, oh my God, I need to understand what the Akashic Records are and how I can offer something similar, even if it's not that profound. This was just the start of my journey, because this is the start of my proper awakening and spiritual path, because I was already using tarot cards, and I've been using tarot cards for many years, but this was just something completely different. This is what I needed to really get me on my spiritual path, but I needed to shift that pattern that had run in. And I don't know where the pattern originated from, actually, but it was just a subconscious pattern that I had going, and she cleared it. And that was me like, right, I need to work out how I'm going to use the Akashic Records to support other people. So that's what started my journey in terms of my training, and then evolving my training into kind of what I do now with my clients.
Wow, that's an amazing story, and congratulations as well.
Oh, thank you.
That is unbelievable, and so instant, so fast. This wasn't something that was kind of a slow burn that you gradually kind of grew into. This was instant. Amazing.
It was absolutely instant, and I would say that a lot of my clients don't get the instant thing. You know, I was lucky enough to perhaps just be at a tipping point with maybe the choices and the kind of, you know, what I was doing to try and really tackle this. And that might have just been the tipping point and the shift that I needed energetically to just allow that to happen. Most of the time with pendulum healing and Akashic healing, it can be quite gentle. And it's kind of, you realize that something's cleared because you're not triggered by that pattern anymore. You're not being held back by it. And that's when you know that something has been cleared. But sometimes people do get the kind of the big shifts as well. So it can really depend on the person and kind of where they're at.
Amazing. Oh my goodness. It sounds utterly fascinating and really transformational. And I can see why you were just gripped by it. Not only did you have such a massive transformation in your own life, but you just then felt compelled and pushed to then look at that modality and offer it.
Absolutely, yeah.
So I've got a question that's come in, which is amazing. And this is really interesting for so many people. And hello, if you're just joining us, don't worry if you feel like you've missed anything. It's all recorded. You can go back and listen to it from the beginning. So please don't worry and ask your questions away. So somebody's asking, Anne-Marie, great question. She's asking if it's similar to cord cutting, because that's something else that a lady who was on a couple of weeks ago, lovely Hillary, was talking about, cutting cords. Is it the same kind of thing? Is this different?
Cord cutting... Cord cutting, no, it is similar in terms of clearing. So it's clearing energy. So cord cutting is amazing. And I do get my clients to do cord cutting. And in fact, we went into the Akashic Records with people on my program just to try and do a different way of cord cutting. So a program is really something that is being run in your mental or emotional body, whereas your cords could be in your auric field. They could be, well, from what I believe, or attached to your, you know, a mental, emotional body, wherever. And they are also attached to a situation, a person, a memory, a location, an object even. Whereas your programs are usually kind of created because of a choice that you've made. You've agreed to do something, and then it can kind of then create a behavior pattern that then becomes this program that then has you on this kind of repeat kind of cycle. And it's just something, unless you get the awareness of it and then you start to do something different to break that cycle, it just will continually run. So it's something that you create And it could be on the back of, experiencing trauma or having a breakdown of a relationship. But it is different to a chord. A chord is, actually attached, where this is like a piece of hardware that's running this background program like it would on a computer. Amazing. So there is a difference.
Thank you for explaining that. That was really clear to me. So having that faulty software, that faulty problem that's out of date, we just haven't done a virus update on it, and it's still running an old program.
But quite often it's hard because we don't get the consciousness of the choices that we're making that upholds that block or that piece of, that program or whatever. And that's the challenging thing. But what you can do is if you know that you're if you're finding that you are attracting the same kind of relationships, you're not able to get out of your financial hardship. There's just, you have the same thoughts around maybe food or alcohol or addictions, then there's some kind of pattern going on there. And once you recognize you've got that pattern, then it's really kind of delving deeper, and you can go into the Akashic Records to do that. You can go into the Akashic Records to find out a little bit more about that and then try and break that cycle. But it's really about doing differently. For me, grounding the spiritual stuff, things we can find into the 3D, into the physical life, to support me and having more flow, abundance, and all of the good stuff that we want to experience.
Amazing. Thank you so much. And Anne-Marie is very thankful for that answer. There's so many pennies dropping for me, Anne-Marie, so I'm really pleased it's the same for you at home, sat watching this. That's wonderful. Thank you so much. It's lovely to get feedback. So you've touched on a couple of times about 5D and 3D, and I must admit there has been so much talk this year since we've been in lockdown, and the awareness of some awakening and transmission that's happening. Would you be able to speak a little bit about kind of what's coming up for you about that, and anything that you have come into your awareness from your perspective around that 5D, 3D, the 3D, 5D shift?
Oh, sorry, I just missed that last bit. I think my internet was just breaking up. So just repeat that last bit of the question.
Just to talk to us about the 3D, 5D shift, anything that's been downloaded to you or has come into your awareness through working through other people's records and working with them. Kind of what's coming up for you about this at the moment?
Well, all I can kind of see is that there's more and more people waking up. Absolutely. All walks of life. It tends to be, and I'm finding it's definitely more females than males, but maybe that's just people, that come into my community. But there's definitely a shift with, you can see it physically with just what's going on in society in general in terms of things being unearthed and, I don't know, things going on in governments, and there's just so much going on that is being highlighted, and this is part of the big shake-up that is happening on the planet. And this is really about the ascension process and us being bombarded with all this amazing light from the spiritual realms, the spiritual sun. And the more that we can wake up, the more we can create change, positive change that is more towards us living on a planet where it's one consciousness. We're all supporting each other. We're not kind of, I'm going to say the word, raping the planet of her resources. And, we're kind of treating each other with respect and all of that. And that's kind of where, that is the kind of the big vision. And that's where we're kind of heading towards. However, there's this massive upheaval that we're going through at the moment, which we can see on so many levels. And so the 3D, we are shifting out of third dimensional. So third dimensional is basically your physical human experience. It's always being in a physical body. That's basically what the third dimensional realms are. Fourth dimensional is your thoughts and your feelings. And fifth dimensional is your intuition. It's the spiritual realms. It's the Akashic Records. And then you've got all the other dimensions beyond that. There's 12 dimensions in total, but we really only, I guess, connect properly to the fifth dimension. I mean, obviously we can connect higher, but generally it's the fifth dimension that we go to. Obviously the fourth dimension we're using all the time, and third dimensional we have to use to move our body, to create money, to go to work. We've got to do all of that stuff because at the end of the day, we're humans having souls in a human body. So we've got to stay grounded, but we've also got to kind of, what I would say is not be affected by the fear that is being transmitted globally. And what I say to a lot of my community, I say this quite a lot, is it's really key that you spiritually cleanse. And it's like spiritual hygiene. And for me, aura cleansing is just a really important thing to be doing. For me, it's like brushing your teeth now. I cleanse my aura every day, because obviously I'm doing the work that I'm doing, but it's also because I don't want to tap into the collective consciousness of the fear and the anxiety that is being projected, from all kind of places, social media, all of that, the news. So the more that you can spiritually cleanse and, keep your energies clear, keep your vibration high, and you'll hear a lot of spiritual mentors talking about this, using crystals, going for walks in nature, taking time out from everything and just going within and just doing, some simple breathing exercises really helps you to detach from this fear. But it's fear that's really driving a lot of stuff at the moment. It's madness. But this is part of the shift. The shift apparently is supposed to go on for 32 years. I don't know if that's right, or 2032. I think we're supposed to be in a better place, but it's a little while off yet. So we've got to hang in there and really support each other and just support everybody that's waking up. People that are waking up are going through these big shifts emotionally. They don't know what they're doing. They're kind of confused, at a crossroads normally, want direction, want a sense of purpose, but they're not sure how to get it. And, things around them might just be falling apart, relationships, marriages, jobs. That's all part of the awakening process. And it can be pretty rough for some people. It can be really rough.
Wow, thank you. Thank you again for explaining that. It's a highly complicated subject, and there are some amazing people talking about it. And thank you for explaining that, and also touching upon spiritual awakening process. Because for each person, it can be very difficult, and it can be actually quite traumatic, and you're not actually sure what's happening, and you're wondering whether you are having some kind of mental crisis, because everything just seems to be in complete upheaval. But for some people, and that was certainly how it felt for me, it literally felt as if everything had ended, and I was just sat on a sofa going, what on earth has happened to my life? And that was definitely how it was for me. Thankfully, I had some spiritual foundations to build upon to kind of go back and ask what was happening. But yeah, it really does feel like it's our calling at the moment, doesn't it? To kind of be that light, and for people that really are in need to be kind of drawn. And I'm amazing. It's amazing that so many people are really resonating with what you're saying and asking for information. Rachel, if you want to know how to cleanse your aura, then we will put links for Marina's website and Facebook page on here. So there's so many amazing videos, so much goodness on your Facebook page and the videos tab to go back and have a look at.
Yeah. Just drop in. I'm constantly on Facebook, so just drop in. I'm always sharing lots of stuff, and I've obviously got my group as well. So yeah.
Absolutely. So you've got a big one coming up, haven't you? And I only just really twigged it, the 11/11 kind of opportunity that you're putting out there, which again is another kind of big shift, big manifestation time. So could you talk a little bit about some of kind of the offerings that you kind of put out there, specifically for people exactly as you, kind of Rachel and Valerie and Helios, and people who want to know more?
Yeah, sure. So the 11/11 portal is actually, I do masterclasses. I co-host them with my amazing partner, Rebecca, and we both bring different skills to the table, and they're 2 hours, and we're going to do a special one. This is the third year that I've done something special for 11/11. So for those that don't know about 11/11, and you probably have been hearing people talking about it, but it's basically a portal which is already starting to open, but it peaks on the 11th of November. And it's basically, the 11/11 is like basically a portal. It's, like two sets of pillars, the actual numbers, and it's light codes that are coming through from our spiritual sun. And the spiritual sun, if you're not aware, is it's also known as the Sirius sun. And so I think it's about 26 times larger than and more powerful than the sun that we know in the sky. And there's light codes that come from that particular sun that are basically changing our energy bodies, because we need to take on more light. And the more we take on light, we raise our consciousness, we raise the consciousness of the planet, and we get to this unity consciousness where we're kind of all living as one. And so this spiritual sun and this 1111 portal helps with changing our light bodies. And it also it kind of brings light codes of activation, awakening our DNA, because we're only using 2 strands of our DNA. It's been already scientifically proven that we've got 12 strands. So we've got 10 strands that are dormant, and they hold information around our past gifts and all the things that we used to do way back when, before Atlantis and all of that kind of got overthrown and it collapsed. And so the spiritual sun is giving us this portal, and on 1111 you can really bask in all this amazing stuff. So on the portal, on the masterclass, we will be harnessing some of that energy. My kind of role within the masterclass is to clear all the stuff and the gunk and the heavy stuff that we're holding in our aura, within our chakras, perhaps in our 10-layer body system and the Akashic Records. So I'll be guided to maybe do about 10 or 12 blocks that I'll clear with my pendulum, and that gets you ready then to then go through an amazing meditation and activation that Rebecca leads. And for this particular masterclass, we're going to be activating your golden Merkaba. And the Merkaba is an amazing symbol, geometric symbol that is really good for manifestation, but it's really good for protecting your energy and allowing you to connect to the higher consciousness and also the spiritual realms. So it's your golden Merkaba. We're making it gold because gold is really high vibrational. So you're going to come away feeling cleansed, cleared, healed, guided, which is our intention. We're using Archangel Metatron because I work with angels as well. So Archangel Metatron will be overseeing the process along with any of the spiritual, there'll be star beings and, lots of spiritual beings there that will support and hold the space. So it's an amazing 2 hours, and you can come away thinking, oh my God, what I've been through, but you'll go away feeling a lot clearer and a lot more high vibe and elevated. So that's on a live, but we normally get a lot of people buying the replay because they can't turn up, they're at work or whatever, although they might not be next week. And what I would say with any energy healing, anything like this, you don't have to be there live in order to get the power of the portal or any of the energy clearing that we do, because time doesn't exist on the 5th dimension. So whenever you get to watch that replay, you are getting the power, you are in the moment of when we first recorded it. And that is something that is amazing about energy healing, because you can then go back and watch the replay and get that energy all over again. It's amazing. So don't worry about not being able to attend the masterclass live. You don't need to. Honestly, it's just as powerful whenever you watch it.
Amazing. You are such a wise lady that has so many strings to your bow. So sacred geometry and some of the visual anchors, you call them visual anchors. Can you talk a little bit more about that? Because the thought behind that is the first time I come across it, and actually I thought, of course, that makes complete and utter sense. Could you talk about how you use visual anchors and what they are in kind of your work in meditation, but also in some of your deeper work with people? What they would do? Yeah,
so it's just something that I downloaded because I'm obviously writing my Akashic business program, and it was kind of like, well, I know that we set intentions, but how can I do this in a more powerful way? Actually using the Akashic Records to really guide and influence maybe some of the choices that we can make to get to our intentions. And I got it downloaded in my business chamber of my Akashic Records, that they were called success anchors, and this is what you need to do with them. So that was just something that I then evolved, and depending on who I'm working with, whether it's a group kind of meditation on my Wednesday live, I will get people to now clear and heal. And what I've, it's always good to replace the energy that we clear and heal. And so whenever I'm taking energy away from the Akashic Records, first of all, I always get it to be recycled, because we don't want that to go to waste. So it always gets transformed back to Mother Earth. But then we want to replace that. We don't want a void in the Akashic Records, because you don't know what it'll get filled with. Or you don't want a void in your auric field or on your timeline, whatever it is that you're clearing. So I always want to put something positive in there. So if you can think of a success anchor or a visual anchor that motivates you, like an affirmation or a symbol, a color, a guide of some kind, whatever it might be that resonates for you, just pop that success anchor in there and ask for it to be anchored wherever it is that you're doing that. So for me, if I'm doing it in the Akashic Records, I get people to look at their present lifetime book. That's always open on the table. We go to the page that we're looking at for the day when we're going into the Akashic Records, and I get them to get the object, whatever it might be, the word, and I get them to place it into their book, and then it turns into an illustration or a photo or whatever it might be, and it's been stamped. So we're stamping with a proper intention. And then that for me is then very, very, it influences, I think, in a positive way, what we do then in terms of choices. So when we come out of the meditation, right, okay, how's that changed my mindset? How's it changed how I feel about this situation? What am I going to go and do now to make it happen? And that's what a success anchor is for me. But it's just done in a much more profound way, I think.
That is so amazing. And again, just seems really obvious, but when you explain it, you think, of course, that makes complete sense to have that very special symbol, because symbols are so important to me. And I know actually for many of the mediums and people who work psychically, we work with symbols. That's what we use. We work with colors and symbols. So it makes complete sense to tap into that ancient knowledge by using something that we can understand.
Absolutely.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Phil's put a lovely comment on. Phil, thank you so much. Having a great effect. He's had not the best day, but actually listening to what you're talking about, he's feeling his energy kind of changing and moving. So I'm really pleased about that. But even, time and space, as Marina just said, energy is only of our own construct. Time is of our construct, and space. So no matter where you are, you'll be feeling the benefit of this as if you were getting a one-to-one session.
Absolutely. And that's one of my intentions whenever I'm kind of speaking or working with people. My guides will be here holding the space on our behalf. So you will be getting healing energy. Just kind of us being here and having this exchange. There is a lot of healing going on at the moment, because that's my intention.
Amazing. Oh my goodness. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. So one of the other things I wanted to talk about was soul realignment, because it sounds utterly fascinating in what you do at that kind of another deep dive process for people. So much healing and so needed at the moment. Could you talk a little bit about that and what that's all about? Because it sounds fascinating.
Yeah, so soul realignment was the modality that I then dived into after having my own clearing. And it's very much a reading of two halves, and it's a one-to-one session that I can work over a number of sessions, but it's a one-to-one service. And the client comes to me with a 6-month intention, because we want to move forward, we want things to change, people want transformation. And what I do is then I find out what information I can about that soul, about that person, and then we have this one-to-one call. And on the call, what they get to understand is more about their soul profile. So first of all, what their divine gift is, what their soul group is, what their talents are, what their life theme is, which is not the same as a life lesson. So it's really getting a really good understanding of how they've been created at soul level, because once we understand that, we can align to those characteristics more, and we can start to make choices that align to how we've been created, how we've been here to, how we've been created to come and express ourselves through, how we've come to have a human experience, basically. But so many of us are out of alignment because we're not aware of what our gift is. But also there's a lot of karmic stuff that and a lot of stuff that we're kind of like falling prey to, I guess, our conditioning, our beliefs and things like that. So I kind of help give clarity, guidance to the client. So it's about learning who they are at soul level, first of all. And then the second half of the session is really looking at their karmic patterns and the blocks and restrictions that are in the Akashic records that don't support them achieving these intentions that they give to me. And I normally look at about 3 lifetimes worth of blocks. Usually there's at least 2 lifetimes worth in the past, and then there might be some present lifetime stuff as well. And we work through what those blocks and restrictions are, why they've been created, what lifetime, were they male or female. We kind of go into a little bit of detail, but I don't tend to give too much detail because the idea is not to detract the client then afterwards, then going to take new action. Because sometimes the ego can really kind of, and the mind can really kind of, oh, I want to know more details about the past. And that's a complete detraction actually from making change and transforming in the present life. So we don't go into a lot of detail, but just enough to understand why you made those choices. Why did you make a vow of suffering to a religious organization? What was going on there? And how is that still repeating itself today? And it might not be a like for like story, although sometimes it can be. But the energy of suffering and promising to suffer to others will be still showing up for that person. So why are they doing that? What is the fear? What are they agreeing to? Why are they doing things that they don't want to? And then it's like, well, what can you do differently? What small things can you change where you do not suffer, where you're doing things for you and not for others? Because that's basically what suffering is. You're putting up with stuff that you don't want to. So let's stop doing that and you'll get the transformation. So that's kind of what the session is in terms of soul realignment. It's amazing work, and I've done hundreds of readings. And as I say, I'll work with people over, 1 session or perhaps 3 months, depending on what it is that they need.
It sounds utterly fascinating. And some of the things that were coming up for me as you were talking is that sometimes when you go to traditional talking therapies, traditional routes of psychotherapy, they all absolutely have their value in place. But sometimes you're told things like, you need to work on your boundaries. You need to work on this. You need to work on, doing too much for people. But actually, there's a bit of a missing link here, which is understanding why you do that and why you keep doing that. Because it's no good being told you need to stop it. You need to almost just go, like you say, unpick it to understand what are these faulty programs that are causing you to keep doing it.
Yeah, and when you've got a block and a restriction that's upholding the energy of that, then it's really not supportive. You know what I mean? A bit like me with the, I was doing everything I could to try and step away from a psychological addiction to alcohol. But I needed that program, that last piece, just to be cleared for me then to have that switch taken off. So, yeah, having the Akashic records and just being able to understand where the root cause is coming from and clearing the energy of that in the 5th dimension or in the Akashic records just then opens the door and it allows you to step through it feeling a lot more, a lot freer. And it's almost like it's more motivational and you just haven't got those chains and that shackle or whatever holding you back.
Wow. Goodness me, it sounds utterly fascinating. It really does. And the more you hear, the more questions I've got, which is brilliant. So good, so good. Anne-Marie is absolutely loving it. It's her favourite talk so far. Thank you so much, Anne-Marie. I'm really pleased. I've been very excited for having Marina on. And you start your new job on 11/11. Amazing. Yay. Amazing.
Yeah, that's really, really cool.
Really fantastic. So one question that came in a bit earlier from somebody who's not able to be here with us live, but we're watching on the replay. Can you access your own Akashic records, or do you need to go through somebody else in order to be able to do that? So is there a way that we can do it for ourselves?
Absolutely. Yeah. So I've got free meditations on my YouTube channel, which I get you to go into your Akashic records and then introduce you to your Akashic record guide. So there's lots of resources. So you absolutely, you can use a pendulum. So when I'm doing my research, I usually use a pendulum, but because not everybody's a pendulum user, I will teach others through the form of meditation. And just requesting. So it's really about going in with intention. It's about being curious, being open-minded, having a little bit of fun with it. Don't treat it as kind of being something really, really serious, because you could then tend to maybe shut yourself down in terms of the experience. But I find guided meditation is probably the easiest thing until you get well practiced at it. And then you could just talk your way into your own Akashic records, if that was something that you wanted to do. But I think most people would prefer to listen to somebody just taking them into their Akashic records. But absolutely, that's what I'm saying. We're so highly conscious now that you just need to be led into your Akashic records and just believe, start to trust, start to know. And what I always suggest is you go in with an intention, so you're not aimlessly wandering around the Akashic records, as it were. So you get your information, or you can do the healing, or you can put your success anchor in. You can get your guidance as well. So you can get all of these things. That's the benefits of using the Akashic records. And then what I would say is definitely always come out and journal and write some stuff down. What I would also say when you're going into your Akashic records, this is just kind of a protocol for me, is that you always request you going into your own Akashic records. And the way to do that is to say your full name, say your date of birth, and say your place of birth. And always just, for me, imagine it as being a plaque on the door of your library. And then you're going into your own Akashic records. Because when I go into other people's, I have to get those details in order to get into their Akashic records, and I have to have their permission as well. So just be mindful of that if you started to become really well practiced, that you always get a person's permission, because it's going against their free will if you don't get their permission. And always remember to close your Akashic records. That's another thing. So imagine yourself coming out of the Akashic records, hearing the door shut in your Akashic records, and actually stating out loud, I now close my Akashic records. But that's kind of all you need. You just a bit of trust, self-belief, and the more you practice, the more you're going to get. So yeah, go for it.
Amazing. Well, you know what everyone online is going to be doing this evening, don't you? Yeah. Tomorrow morning we'll all be on Facebook going, oh my goodness, I was in my Akashic records. So you've heard it, guys. Only do your own Akashic records. Don't go into anyone else's. Don't go nosing into other people's libraries.
No, not unless they give permission. No.
Oh my goodness, it's so joyful to talk to you, and feels really really positive. And you know me, I'm a big fan of putting things in people's toolboxes that actually, as you've beautifully articulated, we're here now, we've chosen to be here now, we've chosen to be in this place and we're all on this spiritual development pathway. So stuff that toolbox with lots of tools that help you understand yourself, get to know your own soul, and understand how you can help others and spread that light. Amazing. Thank you. There are so many questions here. We're not going to get to all of them, but I was just going to go back to Valerie's amazing question, Valerie, which links so beautifully to your ancestral meditation you did. Looking for generational patterns as well. So you've already touched on other people's Akashic records, but is that true that you can be influenced by Akashics from your family members?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So the genetics. So some of the blocks that I find is ancestral vows, and also we can have genetic karma. So anything that's kind of where there's been something that's been contracts or vows or promises, that kind of thing, can come through the energetic DNA, and it shows up. It's kind of one of those things that we've not created physically ourselves in any of our lifetimes, but it's coming through the ancestral line, either the maternal or the paternal line. So you can absolutely go into the Akashic records and just just ask if there's any healing that you need to do on behalf of your ancestors that might still be showing up for you. So if you find that you have got a pattern that you would like to go back and find more about and heal, then when you go into your Akashic records, you could actually ask to see if it is like originating from your ancestors in some way, from the either line. And if it's not, then that's fine. And what I would say is that any healing that you do for yourself, you're actually healing your future timelines and your future generations. So any healing that I've done for myself is not going to get passed on to my sons, which is absolutely fantastic. And any healing that I've done for my own past, or any ancestral healing that I've done, I've always done it to the beginning of time, because if we don't state how far we want to go back, it generally only goes back about 7 generations, I believe. So it's always best to actually stay, you know, if I'm sending healing down to my maternal line because of this pattern, and it might be yours, it might not be, but send the healing anyway. Just send it back to the beginning of time. And then that way, you know that you're hitting all of the ancestors that would have been maybe affected by that. But yeah, absolutely, we can be affected by our ancestral stuff, but know that even though it was our ancestors that created it, in some way we are holding that energy also, because we choose our family before we incarnate based on the karmic patterns and the stuff that they're holding in their DNA. And that's how we choose our family as well. Obviously to have lessons and things like that, but we have to be an energetic vibrational match to our family before we come in. And that's because they are holding the same types of energy. So even though we didn't do the vow of obedience 20 lifetimes ago, somewhere along the line, we must have done some kind of vow of obedience. And that's why we chose our family, because they've got that same vow or that energy of obedience. And so we then are a right fit. So we can't blame our ancestors for for stuff, because we will be holding on to that energy for, you know, for whatever reason. We would have, you know, we would have created that block ourselves along the way.
Wow. Do you know what, this feels like such important stuff. I was just reflecting on what you're saying and the different layers to what you're actually talking about. And there's a difference between having an energetic match to the people in our family and liking our family sometimes, and
God,
thinking that they're a good. It's a different way of looking at that relationship, which sometimes gets oversimplified to the point of you chose your parents. And then for people that maybe haven't had that good relationship, that can be a really difficult thing to kind of get your head around. But the way that described it so beautifully, thank you so much. And I know that, as you've already said, your intention to bring healing has already starts rippling. Whoever comes across this in the future and kind of stumbles across this on Facebook or on YouTube, that will be something really interesting to reflect upon. My goodness, I could talk to you all night. It's absolutely fascinating. Thank you. What an amazing evening. Thank you so much for an amazing evening. And thank you everybody for your really, really great questions. It really does mean the world to me that everyone's getting stuck in and involved and rolling their sleeves up with this spiritual life that we're having, and asking some great questions and pushing our own thoughts out there. Absolutely. So thank you for joining us. And thank you, Marina.
No, you're very welcome. It's been wonderful to be here, and like you say, you've had some fantastic questions. So I'm hoping that tonight I've piqued the interest, and hopefully more people will start to explore their own Akashic records, because at the end of the day, you've got this knowledge base where you can learn so much more about yourself. You can go and empower yourself to go and do your own healing, your ancestral healing, get insight and guidance about your soul gifts, your lessons. There's just so much you can learn about yourself, and it's just a brilliant empowerment tool to go and do that.
Oh, my goodness, my goodness. Thank you so much once again, and thank you everybody. This does feel like the beginning. I completely agree with everything that's coming through on the comments. It feels like the beginning of a really exciting journey for so many of you. So I will put all of Marina's links on the bottom, and I will go back and have a look at all the comments we haven't managed to get to and see if we can answer as many as we can. Thank you for joining us. Be with us next Friday. We've got the amazing Karen and Neil, who are coming to talk to me again live 6 till 7. Every week we have some just outstanding people doing some amazing work for the spiritual realms, for people on the earth. Look after yourselves. I will see you next Friday. And for those people that are joining us on Sunday for our special Remembrance Service of Hope, please, we'll see you at 6:15 over on the church Facebook page. See you later, everybody. Night, night. See you later.
Thank you. Bye.